Hi, it's Mark from Top Local. We're here with Bernie Pawlik, Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver, serving Vancouver's auto repair and maintenance needs for 38 years. 18-time winners of Best Auto Repair in Vancouver as voted by their customers. How you doing, Bernie?
Doing very well, Mark.
So, 2004 Mini Cooper had a clutch problem. What was going on with the Mini?
So this vehicle was brought to our shop. Basically, the owner of the vehicle wasn't able to put the car into gear. Well, you just weren't able to put it in gear forward or reverse. And they had it to another shop who did some repairs, but they didn't have any success in fixing it. They replaced the clutch hydraulics, the slave and master cylinder, but that didn't repair the issue. So I guess I got a little disenchanted and decided to bring it to us to do some work.
So how did you determine what was wrong with the clutch?
Well, we did a couple of things. First of all, there's to actually bleed the hydraulic system on a Mini can be a little complex. There's a bleeder screw, and you think, oh, you just pump the pedal, which is sort of normal procedure that works on almost every car. But sometimes with clutches, not just Minis, but other vehicles, it's hard to get the air out of the system, and there's a special procedure where you have to actually make sure that the slave cylinder is completely collapsed, like right in the bottom, right at the fully retracted position. Before you bleed it. So we did that. There was actually a little bit of air in the system, and we were actually able to make a bit of an improvement to the clutch where you could actually shift it into the forward moving gears, but you still couldn't get it in reverse with grind. So there's clearly a problem inside the clutch. So to determine what we had to do, I mean, basically at that point, we established the hydraulic system was all fixed. There was a problem internally, either a broken pressure plate or some other issue.
And so, do you have some pictures of that?
Yeah, I do. So, what we found actually, to get right down to it, as I mentioned, broken pressure plate is one issue. But here, I'll just share some photos here. All right. So we'll start with. Well, this is the problem we found. Actually, the clutch fork was the part that was broken. Now, the fork attaches to the out of the view of the picture. And outside of the body of the transmission is the clutch slave cylinder, which is actually what. When you push the pedal, that's actually the force is transmitted to the slave cylinder. That actually moves this fork, and this pushes the clutch release bearing. I'll show another picture in a second against the clutch. And this weld here is broken and cracked. It's not an entirely uncommon issue on Minis. So this was broken, and so the bottom end of the fork was pushing fully, but the top end wasn't, so that it wasn't allowing the clutch to release fully. So we'll just go to another picture. This is with the new fork installed. You can see both the arms are good, and this is the clutch release bearing, which pushes against our next picture, which is the actual clutch itself. This is a view. This is bolted up to the engine. There's the flywheel, which is attached to the engine. This is the clutch pressure plate, and there's a disc inside, and that's what's attached to the transmission. So when you push the pedal, these pieces here move. That releases the pressure on the disc, and that's what allows you to be in neutral or to shift gears.
So how often do you find clutch forks breaking? That's not something I remember us talking about.
No, I don't know if we ever talked about it. It's not really common, but it happens from time to time on any variety of cars. We've had some Subarus with broken clutch forks in the past. We've had a lot of American vehicles where the clutch fork will break. Sometimes they get damaged as well. They do rub against push against the release bearing, so there's some forces that will affect and wear the tabs where the release fork touches the release bearing. But it's not a really common issue, but it does happen from maybe 1 out of 20 to 50 clutches needs fork replacement.
That seems like quite a few. Now, Minis, I've got some experience with the old version, the English-made original Mini, and they were pretty crowded. Is this engine compartment pretty crowded in the new Mini that's made by BMW?
Yeah, it's insanely crowded. This was actually a non-turbo, sort of a base model, and it's just packed full of stuff. And actually the turbos are, I don't know if I can say any worse, but they've got to be, because they've got a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, they're extremely tight fitting. There's really nothing that's easy to do on these vehicles except maybe open the oil filler cap. But everything else is pretty complex and involves a lot of work to do it.
And how are Minis for overall reliability?
Well, I'm going to use the word fair. There are a lot of things that tend to go wrong with them. I mean, even the clutches don't tend to last all that long in these vehicles. We've had, clients with, who've had by the time they hit 100 or 150,000 kilometers, they've replaced 2 or 3 clutches. So things like that aren't quite as reliable as you'd expect. belt issues. They've got a lot of plastic parts in the cooling system that fail. So they're not exactly trouble-free vehicles, but people buy them because they like the style of them, and they are kind of fun to drive, especially the Turbo S model is really a real fun vehicle. So there's a bit of a price to be paid for it, but it's expect to do a little more repairs than you would on a Toyota Corolla, and you'll be having more fun too.
Well, it's more of a performance car than a Toyota Corolla is.
It is, exactly. I always use a Toyota Corolla for a base comparison. It's probably not really fair, but it's anyways. There's a little more work to be done, but a good car otherwise.
So there you go. If you have a Mini in Vancouver that you're needing some service or maintenance on, the guys to see are Pawlik Automotive. You can reach them at 604-327-7112 to book your appointment. You have to book ahead. They're busy. They're always busy. Or check out their website, pawlikautomotive.com, or our YouTube channel. We've got hundreds and hundreds of videos on there of all makes and models of cars over many years. Thanks, Bernie.
Thanks, Mark.